Welcome back, Soulful Society, to Soulful of Wellness,
the multi-generational podcast brought to you by two functional imperfectionists
and certified coaches
who deliver tips to live your most authentic and balanced life.
Thank you for joining us for another week of wellness goodness. And just so you don't miss another week, hit that subscribe button, which is now called follow. If you haven't already, please take some time to write us a review so other people can find this podcast.
We'd really appreciate it. This week, we are talking about self-sabotage and how to overcome self-defeating behaviors.
Hopefully, by the end of today's episode, you'll learn how to no longer self-sabotage and really be able to support yourself on your wellness journey. We have some interesting anecdotes about self-sabotage and some insights that we think will be really valuable to you along your journey. So without further ado, let's get into it. Have you ever felt like super stressed and anxious when you're trying to achieve something important? Same. Been feeling that a lot lately. This in turn might make you feel more and more frustrated, discouraged, and sometimes angry with yourself. And these feelings trap you and actually keep you from doing what you need to do to accomplish this goal.
But fear not, because today's episode is for you. Today, we're talking about what self-sabotage is, signs that you may be doing it, how it affects your self-esteem, how it damages you and impedes your path to success in your goals, and of course, probably most important, how to overcome your self-sabotaging behaviors to be the successful person in your relationships, in your job, and in your life. Let's start with what self-sabotage is.
The act of destroying or undermining something, often in a covert manner. Wow, that's a pretty intense definition.
Yeah, so that's traditional sabotage for those Office fans out there. Sabotage. We historically think of a spy movie or something maybe around World War II, groups getting together and sabotaging the evil, nefarious characters' efforts. So that's traditional sabotage. Today, we're talking about when you are the one directing that own destructive behavior at yourself, self-sabotage. I try to make it sound all happy. Self-sabotage. Not a happy thing.
Yeah, this one is
No.
more cute. No. A self-sabotage, it can really manifest in a ton of different behaviors unique to you as a person. And so I think the main takeaway today, as you're listening, is going to be to take note and to start to build some awareness around your behaviors and your habits while you're under stress or have a project or a deadline or something within your life that you are trying to accomplish, some sort of goal. And to be able to essentially paint a picture. It's almost like, what I just thought of, Kit, is when you're paint by numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's what you're going to fill out during this episode, figuring out those little clues, aka your behaviors,
to reveal the image beneath.
Exactly. Yep.
Oftentimes people aren't aware that what they're doing is self-sabotage. So you might just say, oh, I'm always late for everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's a classic, I'm foreshadowing a bit, but procrastination is a major red flag that you might be self-sabotaging. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Should we launch right into signs of self-sabotage?
Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, I think procrastination is the first thing I think of when I think of self-sabotage.
I was reflecting on this as we were preparing for this episode. Procrastination is the single biggest in both impact on my success and impact on my anxiety level that I do to myself. because by either not budgeting enough time initially when I'm scheduling myself or when I'm setting interim dates on a longer term project, by not being realistic about the time needed to do things, already out of the gate, I've set myself up to not be assured of success because I've made whatever it is I'm working toward more challenging for myself, but to guarantee that there will be more anxiety associated with it than is necessary. Because then I get into that rushing, rushing, rushing. Yeah.
100%. A really good quote is bad news does not get better with age.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about that, putting something off or not telling someone something or not checking that to-do list item or just letting it sit and letting it sit is not only going to not make it better, it's probably going to make things worse. I have a real life example to use. I had this beautiful, beautiful gown that was really quite a treat. It was really expensive. And I used it for my engagement photo shoot. And it's a part of my bridal wardrobe. And what happened was during the photo shoot, it got wet in the ocean. But it didn't look destroyed by any means. I was pleasantly surprised. But I also noticed somehow I don't know how this happened. There's like lipstick on the shoulder pads, and so obviously I needed to take this to the dry cleaners. It has been hanging in like plastic, so it has some level of protection on a door in my apartment for 4 months now. I can't tell you how much anxiety it brings me to even think about it. And it's gotten worse and worse. As the longer it sits, the more anxiety builds. And I had this weird, weird thought. I don't know which dry cleaner to bring it to. It's so special. I don't want it to get destroyed, which now it's just sitting there with those stains. And like I have anxiety just thinking about it. And I still need to do that this week.
I have a theory. You live in downtown Washington, D.C. You live within probably a square mile of dozens of dry cleaners. And the fact that you haven't brought it in, my theory is that you're afraid they're going to give you news you don't want to hear, like we can't get this lipstick out, or we're sorry this dress is ruined, and you don't want to hear it. So by procrastinating and not bringing it in, you're ensuring that you're not hearing that news.
Mm-hmm. Ugh.
But that news is going to be that news whenever you bring it. And the longer you wait, you're right, the more likely that's going to be the news.
It was weird because my excuse to myself, and it felt really valid, was I don't know who to trust with this article of clothing because it's so nice. I don't know who to trust it with. And instead of making a decision and taking that little itty bitty risk of, because I don't have a dry cleaner that I go to. I went to JC's dry cleaner and had her fix jeans and take them in, and she ruined some things. So with that experience, I was operating from a fear-based mindset, and now it's getting worse. And now you are correct. I am scared they're going to tell me we can't get this lipstick out. Sorry.
That is classic of these self-sabotaging behaviors, and the reason we do them and the reason we repeat them even after we learn they're doing them is because you can protect yourself from news you don't want to receive or perceived failure by saying, well, that was on me. I'm the one who left it sitting there, or I'm the one who didn't study for the test. So of course I failed. I deserve to fail because you were afraid of failing. So you ensured failure by not studying. All those little undermining behaviors, but you're also ensuring that you guaranteed will not be successful. Whereas you may very well have been successful in passing the test had you studied, or in having the garment restored to wearable condition if you took it in a timely fashion.
And let's take the student example. I really like that one because that's a really common behavior is I'm not going to do the project, or I'm going to half-ass it, or I'm just not going to study because I'm afraid I'm going to fail anyways. That's basically a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that way you're not letting yourself down. as in I studied really hard and I still got a
Right,
D.
and it's less embarrassing because if you have to admit, "I studied really hard and I still didn't do well, gosh, I must not be that bright," as opposed to, "Yeah, well, I deserved to fail. I didn't study anyway." You're almost saving face, like, who knows what would have happened if.
So then what is the underlying sort of resolution to this? I know we're going to get into this later in the episode, but if you think about it, it's sort of this procrastination, self-sabotage is in order to protect yourself from something. And it's the opposite of trust. So it's like a question, rhetorical question. How can we build that trust, that self-trust, that trust of others and surrender?
Often underlying all this is self negativity, either negative self talk. And listeners, we are planning an episode on self talk, why it's important, and how to improve your self talk. So stay tuned for that one coming soon. If you're experiencing some imposter syndrome, if you're just feeling that you're failing in comparison relative to your coworkers or your same age peers where they are in their relationships, or whatever basis you're using for comparison that you are failing according to your scale.
So what we're really talking about is self-sabotage and self-esteem go hand in hand.
Definitely.
I want to touch on this idea of perfectionism. As you guys know, you're a part of the Soulful Society, the Imperfectionist Club. Perfectionism can rear its ugly head here. And that's where we can also self sabotage by delaying things, by starting things, projects, and not finishing them until they're quote unquote perfect and never getting around to doing something about it because we're operating from a fear-based mindset because we're not trusting ourselves and we haven't built up our self-esteem enough to the point where we can not be afraid to fail and to just try and see what happens and to be okay with good enough.
This is a common one. Look for signs within yourself. Think and even look around in your physical surroundings. How many started projects are on hold, maybe long term hold? Why? I do the opposite where I just don't ever start.
Mm.
That's its own problem. In my mind, if I start something, I must finish it. So I get very stressed out when I feel like I have too many things in progress. And I'm like, need to finish, must finish. So therefore, I don't start anything new. I need to be more
Mm,
open to being okay with things are a process. Things take a while, and it's okay to have several going at a time.
definitely.
Clearly, there's a chicken and the egg thing going with self sabotage and self esteem.
Mm.
Low self esteem causes you to self sabotage. Self sabotage causes you to not be successful, thereby impacting your self esteem in a negative way or reinforcing beliefs about your lack of ability or lack of
Yes,
intelligence or lack of success. So they feed each other.
definitely. And it's like if you're trying to get fit or lose weight or something like that and you're on a roll and with nutrition and then one night you go off the rails because you think to yourself, I'm not seeing results, or let's say you just stop exercising, you're frustrated and you're not seeing results. And so you begin to fall back into old patterns and old behaviors because that's where you're comfortable. And then that self-talk starts to chime in, like, see, like told you, like, let's just fade back into the status quo. That's what we know. We can't do this.
Self sabotage clearly damages you, as you're describing, in many ways. It impedes you from being successful in your goals, even when your goals are realistic. You have the will to be successful. It's a good goal for you, and you have the ability to be successful. Sometimes you need a little more patience or not need to see success so rapidly. Sometimes you just need to take a deep breath and trust and wait it out. These are related to anger issues at times, sometimes passive aggressive behavior issues, very often feelings of guilt and frustration that you're bringing upon yourself that are damaging you beyond just this specific goal.
Mhm.
That brings us to what we can do to overcome these self sabotaging behaviors.
Well, I love the idea of patience that you brought up, Kit, because it also allows us to be the imperfectionist that we want to be, to allow for mistakes. Who cares if you had dessert one night and you're trying to get more fit? That's not going to derail you completely. Let yourself have the dessert if it's bringing you joy. Acknowledge your progress. And coaching, we love to say, celebrate the small wins.
Yeah.
So absolutely do that and allow for imperfections along the journey. Because if we strive for perfection, I think that almost self-sabotage is inevitable in that case. So if we just allow, some grace with it, laugh at ourselves when we stumble and tumble and fall and get right back up and unconditionally love ourselves, we can begin to overcome self-sabotage.
Recognizing any of these signs we've mentioned or others we haven't mentioned, recognizing them for what they are when they're actually self sabotaging behaviors. Saying, hold on, I know what I'm doing right now. And this is counterproductive to what I'm trying to accomplish. Recognize it in yourself. And then you're expecting me to say, turn it around? No, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Understand the emotions that led to that choice or that behavior.
Oh, this is a big one. And this is one that I've been struggling with because I'm at the point in my wellness journey where I understand like we need to feel our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes I ask myself, okay, well now what? I'm feeling them and this is very uncomfortable. And now what's next?
Well, this is where you need to feel it and kind of manage it. So you said don't beat yourself up about it. You can have
Mhm.
acceptance, but then take the logical you and separate it from the emotional you and have a chat with emotional you. Say, I get it. I get how you're feeling. I even get why you're feeling. But right now, we need to do this differently. You need to trust that you're not always going to feel this way and have
Mhm.
the logical you get the reins for a little while. An emotional you has to trust that in order to change things, you're going to have to try approaching it differently.
Definitely. And check the warning signs of anger or anxiety before they get to this out of control point. So we love saying, and we'll keep saying it, like, take care not to ignore strong emotions. They're there for a reason. That emotions are a sign, they're an indicator of something, especially when something is wrong.
Right. Don't deny them. Don't say, oh, that's silly. That's not a thing. No, if you're feeling it, it is fully a thing.
It's valid. Even if you are sitting there feeling in a funk and you don't even know what triggered it, that's valid too.
Absolutely.
It's valid.
So as you're leaning in to these emotions and what's behind them, what's causing them, spot the thinking or the beliefs that caused that emotion. Also, question the validity of the emotions. Once again, I realize I just said if you feel it, it is real to you, but question where it came from.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I feel disgusted with myself because I always break my diet and then have a huge pig out, and I'm just an enormous, awful pig of a human being. Well, okay, wait, let's question that for a minute. I get that you feel bad about yourself right now.
Yeah.
Let's question, are you really just an awful pig of a human being? Is that really a thing, or is that just your emotions going into overdrive here?
Right. It's like a kid with a tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your inner child in a bad way,
Yeah.
sort of spiraling and throwing a fit. And ask yourself, whose voice is that? Is that someone who's criticized me in the past? Is that my inner gremlin? Who is really saying that? I've been doing some mirror work lately where, you're in your body all day long, you're doing things, you're a human being and a human doing. why don't we take a minute in the morning when we're looking in the mirror to acknowledge that person in the mirror, that physical manifestation of our being and our soul, and greet them with kindness? And greet them, like, think about, how does your friend feel when they see your face? So starting to do self-esteem exercises like that can be helpful in recognizing, where are these thoughts coming from?
As you look into where these thoughts are coming from, you begin to understand where they're coming from. You can push pause when you realize they're just escalating or spiraling or just going completely into the dramatic realm.
Yeah.
Then you can change your behaviors, emotions, and thoughts.
Ooh.
As you become increasingly aware of these negative emotions and the behaviors and thoughts that follow, they're like the triggers to your self-sabotage, and that's how it manifests, is in this self-sabotage.
Got it. So you're in a big emotional state
Yeah,
usually when you're self-sabotaging.
just a big spiral of everything in the extreme. Kind of that kid you just described having the tantrum.
Right.
That you're like, "Woo, that seems a lot bigger than it really
Yeah,
is."
yeah.
That's because it feels a lot bigger than it really is on the inside.
Something that builds confidence is doing.
Mhm.
That's really the only way to build confidence in something. So the more we can just try, throw the dart, see if it sticks,
Yeah.
and be okay with that.
Yeah, instead of dwelling.
Right.
Yeah, dwelling, it just keeps spiraling around. Do something, write it down, move outside, just literally anything to snap yourself out of it to start a different line of thinking or open the possibility for a different line of thinking.
Hmm.
And then positive affirmations. So when you're telling yourself you're just an awful pig of a human, okay, wait, time out. Don't think that's actually accurate. Let me come up with something that is.
Kit, what is your favorite affirmation right now that you're using?
My favorite is still, I do not chase, I attract. What belongs to me will simply find me.
Aww.
It's not grandiose. It's not over the top. I'm not promising myself the moon. It's so real, but bright and hopeful that I've, I mean, how many months have I been using that one now? Every single day. And I get this really good warm feeling when I say it every day. So it's still my favorite. How about you?
Oh, and that's when you know you picked the right affirmation. So if
Mhm.
it's not warm and fuzzy, it's not for you right now.
And I didn't even write it. I borrowed it from your friend.
Callie, shout out, girl. We love this affirmation.
Yeah, thanks for the affirmation.
My favorite affirmation right now is really simple. I just keep telling myself, I got this. I got this.
I have a manila folder, but it's over on my dresser there, and it says, "You got this," written on the outside of the manila folder, just in big letters. And I see it all the time. One of the young women I work with gave it to me. She was telling me about this activity she did in a group she's part of where they exchanged affirmations, like wrote little
Oh,
affirmations and kind of
cute.
passed.
Yeah.
And I said, "What was one that resonated with you the most? What was the one that you got? You read it and you were like, yes, this." And she said, "Probably you got this." And I wrote it really big on the folder that was sitting next to me when I was talking to her. And I look at that one all the time.
It's like you're your own little coach.
It
You got
is.
this.
And it's true. If you think, well, do I really? Well, yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I got
I got
this.
this. Developing self supporting behaviors is key here. Once you've identified and began to defeat the false rationale and whatever narrative you're spinning while you're self sabotaging, that's the key to rebuilding your self esteem. What can you say to yourself that's positive or encouraging after you've let go and felt the feelings? Is there another way to achieve this goal? Are there smaller goals that you can start ticking off one by one to build that confidence and to be able to achieve the bigger goal?
There are plenty of things in the world to get in the way of your success. You shouldn't be one of them. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend.
Until next week,
Peace, love, and light.
peace, love, and light. The Soulful of Wellness hosts are certified health and wellness coaches. This podcast is intended to inform and entertain listeners on their wellness journey. This podcast is meant to enhance, not replace, listeners' care from doctors, therapists, or other medical providers. Soulful.